as we share the latest and greatest with the TELERIK Platform, NativeScript, and mobility in general. And while we hope you can hear us loud and clear and that we'll be free from any connectivity or audio or video challenges throughout our time today, we know that things do happen. So whether it's gremlins in our lines or in yours, there will be a recording of this webinar available and it'll be posted on YouTube later today. So keep an eye out on the blogs, the TELERIK Twitter account, or any of our various Twitter accounts for word of when the recording is up. Now, my name is Brandon Satrom. I'm the General Manager for Developer Platforms and Tools at Progress Software. I'll be your MC and your host today as we kick things off. I'll help come back and close things out, and then I'll rejoin you with Rob Lauer for some live Q&A at the end of the hour. As we usually do for these types of events, we're giving away some great prizes. This time, really excited about the prize that we're giving, especially this first one. I wish I was eligible to win, but I'm not. We're giving away Lego Mindstorms, an iPad Pro, an iPhone 6S, Nexus 6P, an Amazon Echo, and an Apple TV. That's a lot of really great prizes. We're excited about that. So for this webinar, we're going to do not one, but two raffles. So you actually have two ways to win today. If you're listening to us live, you're automatically entered to win, and we'll notify the winners and announce the winners on our blog within the next couple of weeks. The second way to win is to build an app with the TELERIK Platform using the web client at platform.telerik.com. You can build a hybrid or a native app, and while you don't have to, we recommend using one of our quick start tutorials. There's a lot of different tutorials out there to get you started building with a platform in general for both native and hybrid. Tutorials for how you get started with backend services or analytics. Definitely check those out if you haven't already, if you're brand new to the TELERIK Platform. So you build with one of those tutorials, and all you need to do is create a new app and then build and run the app either in the App Builder Companion app or on your iOS or Android device. Make sure you use the same email you used to register for this webinar. And if you're creating a new account, use that same email, and then you have 1 week to go and create your app. Now, of course, as with all such drawings, there are rules and restrictions, which you can find on our website if you'd like to hear more. Now, before we look forward, let's take a minute to look back a bit. In December, we introduced you to the TELERIK Platform 2.0, which is all about bringing all aspects of the mobile app dev experience to a single place so that you could stay focused and ship faster. For many of you, this has been exactly what you needed, as you've been spending more time in the TELERIK Platform, activating more services, and building more apps than ever before. Since December of last year, we've seen the amount of time that most developers spend in the TELERIK Platform double. And in that time, we've also welcomed over 19,000 new developers trying out the product for the first time, and over 200,000 app builds with our cloud build services. You all are doing a lot with mobile, and we just love to see it. Now, for this release, we want to bring the focus to building truly native mobile experiences. And much of today's webinar and demos will center on how we've made it easier than ever to build native apps, truly native apps with NativeScript and the TELERIK Platform. So over the next hour, we'll take you on a guided tour of new features designed to help you build truly native cross-platform apps with JavaScript, craft apps with beautiful mobile UX, leverage a first-class development experience, whether you're building for hybrid or mobile, and then finally, use the tools and frameworks you love for the web to build mobile apps. Joining me today are a few of the amazing folks who are working daily to help you turn your mobile ideas into mobile apps, including Jen Looper, TELERIK Platform Developer Advocate, Eigil Poulsen, who's a PM for the TELERIK Platform, and Rob Lauer, who's the Senior Manager for the TELERIK Platform team as well. They will be your tour guides today as we cover a bevy of great mobility and platform updates. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand it over to our first presenter, Rob Lauer, Senior PM Manager for the TELERIK Platform, to get us started. So take it away, Rob.
Hello to everyone from around the world. Again, my name is Rob Lauer, and I manage the TELERIK Platform product management team. Now, I also have many years of experience as a web and mobile developer, so my focus today will be on many of the tooling and code editing changes we've released. And these tooling changes will really improve your efficiency as an app developer. Now, as Brandon mentioned, the theme of the latest TELERIK Platform release is focused on native development, using our open source framework we call NativeScript. However, I want to make it crystal clear before I go any further that our commitment to Cordova, which is the framework you use if you're creating a hybrid app, we are still absolutely 100% behind the hybrid model in Cordova. Our true goal this year is to provide the best of both hybrid and native worlds going forward, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. Okay, so that being said, let's focus on the goodies I get to share with you today. Today I'm going to show you some of the coding improvements we've made, which will make your NativeScript development in the TELERIK platform far more efficient. We're also going to look at improvements to the debugging experience, especially as it pertains to on-device debugging. We will also look at our revamped and relaunched companion apps. And finally, I'll touch on some hybrid app development improvements and updates. And I'm going to show you all of this while using our Visual Studio extension and the new Universal Desktop client. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so here I have Visual Studio 2015 open. And before you ask, yes, our extension for Visual Studio works fine with the 2015 Community Edition as well. And if you've used the Visual Studio extension recently, you'll be aware of this new start page. And much like the standard Visual Studio start page, we provide you with instant access to frequently requested help docs for both Cordova and NativeScript app development. Now, we also provide big buttons here for accessing our forums, release notes, videos, our feedback portal, and such. Now, I'm going to draw your attention to the left here as we release some new features I think are very useful. If you are a Visual Studio user but are brand new to the TELERIK platform, we've introduced the first of our quick start tutorials. And those of you who have done these tutorials in our web client will be familiar with the format and content here. It's really a great way to get introduced to developing mobile apps for sure. Now, for example, for this tutorial, you learn how to build a photo album using hybrid technologies, so using Kendo UI Mobile and using some Cordova constructs. Very useful. And we're going to be expanding this in the future, providing more hybrid tutorials and especially more NativeScript tutorials. Now, of course, we support both hybrid development with Cordova and native development with NativeScript in all of our tools. Let me close my solution here and navigate back to my start page. So here in Visual Studio, I can create a new Cordova app or I can create a new NativeScript app. Now, when I choose to create a new NativeScript app, I'm presented with a variety of templates to choose from. You'll see that the different templates are everything from a completely blank project to a hello world with some basic functionality in it, to tab navigation and a master detailed display of data. Now, you'll also see that we have separate JavaScript and TypeScript projects here. Now, this is big for us as we've introduced some new TypeScript specific features for you. If you have a background in C#, I highly suggest taking a close look at TypeScript going forward. Now, I'm going to open up one of our starter templates here. How about this tabbed app? And I'll show off some of the code editing enhancements we've introduced lately. Now, just so you can see the makeup of your typical NativeScript app, I'll open up a few files here. Let's start with our XML, TypeScript, and CSS. And yes, this is the real CSS you know and love. Well, at least maybe you love it some of the time. Now, markup with NativeScript is handled via XML. But don't let that scare you because it's actually very easy to understand markup language. It's very HTML-like, but actually even more like XAML if you come from WPF land. Now, we also have these code behind files written in JavaScript or TypeScript, and again, your styling is handled with CSS. So the cool thing here is that you really are repurposing your existing web skills to create truly native mobile apps with JavaScript. And now the first thing everyone's always curious about is autocompletion or IntelliSense. Now, we do support autocompletion for XML markup in NativeScript apps. For instance, inside of a tab view item here, I can start typing and I get my stack layout. And within a stack layout, I can add things like a label, which can have a class. I can also add a text field, which I can add a class to, of course. And I can add some default text to that as well. Now, we also support autocompletion for TypeScript as well, of course. So I could take an existing TypeScript definition file, which you can find at definitelytype.org, drop it into my project, and take advantage of IntelliSense there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to my desktop here, that you can't see, and I'm going to copy a Firebase definition file here, paste that in here. I'm going to navigate back to my TypeScript file, add a reference to that Firebase definition file, and start typing Firebase. There you go. Now I get full IntelliSense for all the Firebase commands I'm going to need. Pretty cool stuff. Makes your coding way more efficient, way less prone to error. Now, related to TypeScript, in our Properties window, we have a brand new TypeScript build menu. This lets us customize a lot of TypeScript-specific properties, like the ECMAScript version we want to target, whether we want to compile our TypeScript into JavaScript on save, the module system we're working with, and so on. Now, before I forget, before I move on past TypeScript, I want to make sure you see that we also have full TypeScript definition files for all of the NativeScript core framework and module right in here. Pretty extensive stuff, a lot of great IntelliSense out of there. Now, while we're in the properties, I think it is a good time to remind you that one of the advantages to using the TELERIK platform for NativeScript is that we handle all the app builds, icon screenshot creation, and loads of other properties for you. For example, the icon and screenshot management here, it's under our Assets tab. And the cool thing here is I can go and I can browse for an icon, and it'll go out and create icons for every platform, every device size that's out there. So here's all my iPhone icons and my Android icons, all created in about 2 or 3 seconds. And as you can see, we can do the same thing for screenshot or splash screens as well. Now within the properties, you can also manage your NativeScript plugins and upgrade existing libraries all within Visual Studio. Now, me personally, I'm a very lazy developer and I prefer to have as much work done for me as possible. So I'm going to switch over to one of our NativeScript sample apps. So let me close out of the solution and head back to my start page here. I'm going to click on Get Sample. Now we have sample apps for both hybrid and native. One of my favorites is our cross-platform groceries sample app. And this will let me create a cross-platform iOS and Android app for managing lists of data. Now just to prove that this is a real native app, I'm going to go ahead and load the app in a local emulator I have installed. Now we do support both Android and iOS emulators. Obviously if you're on Windows using Visual Studio, you will need a Mac handy to use the iOS simulator. And with Android we do support both the stock Android SDK emulators, along with the new Visual Studio Android emulators, which is what I'm going to use here. So I'm going to go ahead and boot up a Android 6 Marshmallow device here. And as it boots up, you'll see that the Visual Studio Android emulator, if you've used the stock Android ones, the Visual Studio one starts much faster. It's a much better experience in terms of usability and responsiveness. Alright, here's my emulator, and now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back here and build my app and deploy it to my device. With the app deployed to my emulator, I can go in and open up the app. I can tap on some buttons here to navigate around a little bit. So you can see very responsive, unlike the stock Android emulator, super useful for testing, quickly testing and debugging apps. Now, the next logical step for me is to debug my app. And with this release of the TELERIK platform, we support full debugging of your NativeScript app on a connected device. So to show this off, I'm going to deploy my app to my fancy old iPhone 5S. Alright, so I'm going to close my emulator and plug in my iPhone. Alright, with my iPhone plugged in and the app deployed to my device, I can open up the app here so you can see it actually running. And I can sign in using TJ's credentials here. And you can see here's our app. We can check items on and off here, and I'm going to go ahead and sign back out. Now, in order to debug this app, I'm going to head over to my devices list, and you'll see that this app shows up as the debuggable application. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the debugger here to this app on my device. Alright, now with the debugger attached, I can close this window, and I'm going to open up my Solution Explorer, navigate to a JavaScript asset so I can set a breakpoint here. And not that one, I want something else. I want one of my views. How about the login? So on my login here, let's scroll down, find a good place to set a breakpoint. Let's break on a user login, because that's an easy thing for us to accomplish. After setting a breakpoint, I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to make sure I run the app on the device, and we'll see what happens when we hit that breakpoint. Tap sign in, and you'll see it hit my breakpoint right here. And once it hits that breakpoint, I can use my common Visual Studio commands of stepping over, step through, step into, and go and step into here and get really detailed step-by-step execution of our code with Visual Studio. And you'll see as I go through here, if I step over, you'll see that our app keeps working as we step through these pieces of code in our app. So that's a really quick look at debugging an app inside of a device. You can see how powerful that can be, especially with native apps, because we're used to, with hybrid apps, having full access to the DOM and our familiar debugging tools, and we're trying to bring that with NativeScript as well, and I think this is our excellent first step. Okay, at this point I want to close everything up, and I want to show you another not so well-known feature from Visual Studio. Let me get back to our start page here. So what I wanted to show you here in Visual Studio is this little feature here. It's been out for a while, but we haven't talked about it much, called Get Code from Cloud. This lets me sync up all of my cloud-based projects that maybe I've started with other clients, like our web client or our Windows client, and I can actually sync those up with Visual Studio. So let me bring down a cloud-based project to Visual Studio. What I want to do instead is actually sync up my existing NativeScript app to the cloud. To do that, I just go to the App Builder menu, and I say Connect Code with Cloud. So this lets me add an app name and a description, and connect. Now once this is done, I can actually seamlessly move from Visual Studio to one of our other TELERIK Platform clients. Now for example, if I'm using Visual Studio at work, but I'm on the road with my laptop and I just want to get in there to make a quick change, I can set this up and any changes I make are automatically synced with the cloud. Now that this is done, I can actually switch over to our new cross-platform desktop client and open up this same app, which I'm going to do right now. Okay, so this is our new cross-platform desktop client. It does work with both Mac and Windows. And you'll see that my NativeScript sample app here is available for me to load up. And I can just, to prove my point here, I can open up all my views. Everything that we saw in Visual Studio is now available. It's available here in my desktop client. Now, to show you how quickly our sync works, if I say make a change here, let's do something innocuous, like add another semicolon, and I save that. Okay, so I can head back to Visual Studio here, and I can reopen this app, and it's going to sync it with the cloud, and it's going to show me any conflicts that I have. So if I want to take the changes that were made locally, or the cloud-based changes, I can view the differences between the two. So you can see we have a built-in diff right here. So pretty cool stuff, all available today with Visual Studio. Now let's go back to my desktop client, and we can show you some other goodies here. Now the great thing about our desktop client, again, is that it does run natively on both Mac and Windows. It provides you a very focused hybrid and native app development environment. Gone is all the fluff and overhead of other IDEs. Every function and feature here is focused on providing a really tuned mobile development experience for you. And while our desktop client is cloud-based, meaning projects you create with this client live in the cloud for easy portability, we do provide offline support. Now, I gotta move my window up here, fit in the webinar viewable window here, but you see this little online text in the lower right here? If that switches to offline, you can remain working in the client, and any changes you make will automatically sync up when you re-establish that network connection. So no more excuses for being bored on plane trips, unfortunately, right? Now let's bring our menu back in here so we can see what's going on. And I want to switch over. I'm going to go back to my dashboard here. And I want to open up a test hybrid app so I can show a few things that we've done in terms of Cordova lately. So I'm going to open up my properties window. In terms of Cordova, you see we're up to Android v5 for the Cordova library and iOS 4.1, Windows Phone 3.8.2. Another cool thing about our desktop client, I'm going to go ahead and run our app in the iPhone simulator. And I'm going to go ahead and run it at the same time in an Android simulator. So, pretty hard to see in the webinar, but you can tell I can have multiple simulators running at once, which means I can iterate through changes and see how they appear on multiple devices instantly, on multiple platforms even. So we have some big plans in store for our universal desktop client in the coming weeks and months as we get closer to a 1.0 release. We're really excited about it. Alright, so next up are our companion apps. And if you're not familiar with the TELERIK Platform companion apps, they're available for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone and let you deploy your app to your device quickly and without dealing with the provisioning madness of iOS. Now let me close up my windows here. Now we've made some big changes to our companion apps that I want to show off quickly. Let me get my companion app running here and share my iPhone screen again. Alright, so I have the new TELERIK Platform companion app loaded here. And now traditionally when I wanted to load an app inside the companion app, what I had to do is go to the Run menu, select Build, choose iOS in my case, and make sure I have the App Builder companion app chosen. Go Next here, and then I get a QR code. And there's a built-in QR code scanner here to scan that code and load the app up. Now that works, that's totally fine to use, it works fine today. But I'm going to show you an even easier way to load an app up in your companion app. Now we have this new feature called My Apps. And if you tap on My Apps, you get a list of all of the apps in your TELERIK Platform account. Pretty cool. Now if you load this up and you think that an app is missing or you're not seeing any of your apps, you can tap the icon in the upper right corner, your little avatar there, and you can actually switch between your TELERIK Platform accounts. Now if I go here and I navigate to, let's say, this test app we've been working with, you'll see that I can open the application, I can view the console log, which is a great way for you to output some debugging variables if you want to actually debug an app on your companion app. And you can actually switch between configurations. In my case, I can switch between debug and release modes in my app. Now before I open up this app, I do want to show you a couple other new features in the companion apps. Now the first is our About screen. Now this shows us all the information about the app itself, which version of Cordova we're running, which version of NativeScript is running in the app, and also which plugins are available to use within the companion apps. So you see for Cordova we have a lot of plugins going on here, and this really lets you test out an app and give you a more accurate experience if you're using any of these plugins inside the companion app. Now let me navigate back to My Apps and open up my hybrid test app here. So there we go. There's the app that we showed you before. Everything works as you expected. Actually looks exactly like it looked in the simulator itself. So again, the new TELERIK Platform companion apps, super useful, super easy to use. They're really a critical part of your iterative development experience. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you've gotten a good amount of information from my segment. I'm going to pass it on over to Jen.
Thanks, Rob. Hi everybody, I'm Jen Looper. I'm a developer advocate at TELERIK, and I'm happy to be here to talk about one of my very favorite topics, NativeScript development, and how you can work from within the platform to create great NativeScript apps. So I'm going to walk you through how you can build NativeScript apps in App Builder using the App Builder CLI, the desktop client, and the web client. But first, let's just talk a little about NativeScript, one of the very exciting products we're building right now here at TELERIK. In case you're not familiar with NativeScript, you should visit nativescript.org and learn more. Take a look at our current Getting Started guide, and get ready for our new Angular 2 Getting Started guide, which is coming very soon. And for very short video tutorials, I'd recommend that you visit nativescriptsnacks.com, which is our archive of little short videos, short guides, and code snippets to help you get started. So what is NativeScript? So NativeScript is a runtime for building great mobile apps on iOS and Android, and soon for Windows, using languages and tools you're already familiar with, including JavaScript, TypeScript, CSS, and XML. So how is NativeScript different from the other great products out there right now? First of all, NativeScript is not like Ionic. There's no DOM for you to manipulate. We're not going to build hybrid mobile apps. We're building native mobile apps. It's not like React Native or Titanium, because it does offer direct access to native APIs in JavaScript. And unlike Xamarin, there's no cross-compilation. So why would you pick NativeScript? First of all, you can reuse the skills you already have. You can reuse your JavaScript and CSS and now Angular 2 skill set You can reuse code, and we're going to talk a little about this today. You can use NPM modules throughout your code base, third-party iOS and Android libraries, and of course you can use Angular 2 to write for the web and for mobile. You can use native APIs because there's no wrappers to access native APIs. You can go ahead and use those directly, and you can use native UI elements. NativeScript is also open source, and it is supported in TELERIK Platform, which is what we're all talking about today. NativeScript bridges the gap between JavaScript and native mobile app platforms and ecosystems, and it does this by leveraging the JavaScript virtual machines, including V8 on Android and WebKit on iOS. In a nutshell, NativeScript is a runtime that allows the JavaScript app code you write to be converted and call native APIs to access native objects. In addition, NativeScript makes it easy for you to call native functions cross-platform with one code base by using NativeScript modules to leverage these native platforms. And here's an example. Here's how you would make an HTTP call to return JSON data from an API. And as if this wasn't cool enough, NativeScript offers integration with Angular 2, Google's rewrite of its popular Angular framework, coming very, very soon. NativeScript and Angular, in fact, make a great pair because Angular 2 decoupled the Angular framework from the DOM, which NativeScript does not make use of anyway because it's building native mobile apps, not HTML5 apps. So we're really excited about the future for NativeScript, and we encourage you to check it out at telerik.com/NativeScript. So let's talk about tooling to create these nice NativeScript apps. We'll start in the web client at platform.telerik.com, but I'll later show you how to download my favorite tool, the desktop client. You're going to love this. So in the web client, click Platform Downloads and navigate to the Downloads screen. You can download the desktop client for either Mac or Windows. I'm going to emulate my Google phone, which I have plugged into my computer. So in the desktop client, you can easily create a NativeScript app in several different ways. Click Create App, and then Advanced, NativeScript, and then go ahead and choose the groceries sample app. Go ahead and give your app a name, and then click Create App. I'm going to show you the new groceries app. It will load the code base. I'm going to choose Build and Deploy to deploy this app to my Google phone. So while we wait for the build, I'm going to click Properties, and notice, I want you to notice that this app supports the latest NativeScript release 1.7, and that's very, very cool. And so now we have our app. Another cool thing you can do is import code that's already developed into your app in the desktop client. I'm going to import a project created by Burke, and it's a NativeScript version of To-Do MVC, which is a to-do app. So in this case, all you have to do is create a blank advanced NativeScript app using NativeScript and TypeScript, and then let it load up. Click on the project name, and then Add from Archive. So I have a zip file ready of the To-Do Apps app folder. So I'm just going to dump it into the app and let it rebuild. You can click Run and then Build and Deploy to view the app on a connected device. And I really like this. What I particularly like about the desktop client is this device info panel and console so that you can watch what's going on your device. It's a great way to debug. So it looks like my app is ready on my device, so let's see this To-Do app. It looks really good. So there are other ways to build NativeScript apps in the platform as well. You can use the App Builder CLI, which is a full-featured command line interface that gives you all the power of the platform, including access to analytics, backend services, and all that great cloud tooling you know and love on the web and desktop clients, available via a handy, lightweight CLI. So let's say you have a NativeScript app you've been working on, and you want to convert it to support the App Builder CLI. Now here's how you would do that. I'm going to cd into the app's root folder and type App Builder init native. If I remove the plist and manifest XML files and any residual platform folders remaining from emulating this app outside of App Builder, I can simply then type App Builder emulate iOS, and the app will build and the emulator will start. And now you have your first App Builder compatible NativeScript app. If you ever get stuck with App Builder commands, simply type App Builder help for a list of commands you can use. Okay, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about another exciting and complementary set of tools we now have available for NativeScript apps. we'd like to introduce UI for NativeScript, which is truly native UI components that add a lot of pizzazz to your apps. Some NativeScript UI components are free, some are paid, and then you can also buy a level of support if you need more help integrating them. Let's take a look at how they look. I'm going to emulate two apps. One is the NativeScript sample app, which includes UI elements, and the other is the UI for NativeScript sample app that's available on GitHub, and you can play with that. So here are some examples of side navigation, which come with various ways to open and close the menu. The side menu is one of the free components. The list view, which is another free component, also comes with a lot of interesting functionality, including item reordering, swipe to delete, pull to refresh, interesting headers and footers. Here are some different ways you can swipe right and left to delete or to have other events happen. The calendar is a paid component, and it has a lot of interesting ways to handle events and navigation. And finally, my personal favorite, the charting capabilities are just amazing, and you can see those in both of these apps. So we have bar charts, ranges, stack charts, area series, line series, spline series, bubble series, scattered bubble series, candlestick series, and it goes on. And personally, I like the pie charts myself. I actually find those really useful. And if you want to tinker with UI for NativeScript, you can build the Expensity app, whose codebase is available on GitHub. And all you have to do that is in the CLI type app builder sample clone NativeScript-Expensity and build the app in the CLI. And you can emulate this app in iOS to do some really nice charting and more. And there you have it, NativeScript UI. So let's turn our attention to another nice feature in the platform and another one of my favorites, which is the capability of building apps integrated with NativeScript plugins. Just for variety's sake, I'm going to reopen the groceries app we built earlier in the desktop. But I'm going to use the web client for the plugin integration. So if I right-click on the app name and choose Manage Packages, I can take a look at all the NativeScript-ready plugins on NPM and use those, or use the curated plugins on Telerik's Plugins Marketplace. I'm going to use one of the plugins from the Marketplace, the barcode scanner, to enhance the groceries app. I search for barcode, actually bar, and install the plugin with one click. And then I need to visit the Marketplace to check the documentation. All I need to do is add a couple of lines of code and add a new button in the XML to click on, which is going to open the barcode scanner. And now I'm ready to build this app for my device. So I'll build for my iPhone this time. When it's ready, a QR code is generated and I can scan it to deploy it to the device. So let's take a look at what I just created. So after logging in, I see the scan button. Let's try to scan some mac and cheese. Oh yay, it worked. Okay, the last demo I want to show you is something really cutting edge. My colleague TJ and I are going to be speaking about this in a few days at NGConf, and maybe we'll see some of you there. At the beginning of this segment, I talked about how NativeScript integration with Angular 2 is creating a lot of excitement in both the web and mobile worlds, partially because it's becoming increasingly easy to share code between both web and mobile. Here I have two sets of code that you'll see are identical. What this is the service tier of both a web and a cross-platform mobile app, all written in Angular 2. And I also have three terminals open. One is running the groceries app for the web, one is running the app on the Android emulator in Genymotion, and one is running on the iOS emulator. So let's take a look. A lot of firepower going on here. So you can see the web and mobile apps all work basically the same, but because we're using Angular 2 to build them, they have very similar code bases, and also because we're using NativeScript with Angular 2, we're building truly native apps with the same code bases. Folks, this is the future, and it's right now. So those are my demos for this time. I'm going to pass the mic now to Eigel, who is a product manager on the platform team, and he's also our guru of analytics.
Thanks, Tim. My name is Eigel Poulsen. I'm a PM at TELERIK, and I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark. One of my areas of expertise is analytics that I'm going to talk about today, along with views, formerly known as Screen Builder. I'm going to show you how you can quickly kick off a new NativeScript app project with views. Then I'm going to show you how you can add analytics to the same project. And finally, I'm going to show you some real-world analytics data from an app that's been running for a little bit more than a year now. So what is view service? Basically, it's a code generator. You can specify the views and the navigation you want in your app from a visual tool that is accessible within the TELERIK platform from the web browser. You simply specify what you want, and then the code is generated for you and added to the project. You can also connect to data sources like TELERIK backend services, and you can add your own custom code to your project. What is analytics? Well, it's a way to anonymously collect users' data and exception data from your deployed app. You add a monitor, that's what we call the module, the analytics module, the little green box in the diagram here, to your app, and then you can immediately collect lots of default data, which is really valuable for you. And the monitors are available for mobile web and desktop applications. Based on the data you collect, you can simply replace lots of those gut feelings with real facts. I've created a demo app that I call AnchorPal. It's a simple app that can register my favorite anchor spots, install those in the cloud. And it's built with those tools that I'm going to talk about today. So let's quickly jump into the project here, and let's start out by looking at the data which I have created for it. I have the TELERIK backend services project, and I've created this type named anchor spot, and here I've made a little collection of anchor spots with a name and description, warnings and rating, position, and this information is what I'm going to show in my app and also manipulate. So let's take a look at the app itself. I'm now in the AnchorPal app in the view service, and this is the app, and it is really simple. It's got an about page like this, and then it's got the list of anchor spots, my favorite anchor spots. I can scroll through, and I can go into the details for each individual anchor spot. You can also see here that those views are in this list. And what you do when you use this tool here is that you simply, for example, decide that you want to add an extra view, and you can pick from the list of templates here. The ones that I have chosen so far is the About box, and it's the Master Detail box. But you could also choose authentication, for example, if you wanted to have login functionality added to your app. Let's take a quick look at what I did. So here are the settings that I used. Won't go through all the details, but basically in the beginning you define what the name of the view should be, also the programmatic name, the navigation. You can set up, should this be part of the menu system, the data binding, I have it here. I'm telling it that it should pull the data from this backend services project that I just showed you. I can also specify how the list screen should look. You can see here that the name, that's this one here, should be visible, and the description. And further, I have this position also being shown. I can likewise specify how the detail section should look in this composer here. You can reorder the field, etc. Let's take a quick look at how the code looks once it's been generated. So basically you just specify the views here, the elements that you want to be visible on the different views, and the navigation between the views. And then you apply, and the code is being generated. So let's jump into Proton, the new app builder client, and see what's happening behind the scenes. So here we have all the source files, and you should notice here that we have the components folder, and here we have the two views that's in my app now, the About view and the Anchor Spots view. And if we look at the Anchor Spots view, you can see that there's also a folder for item details. There's also data providers, that's the link to the TELERIK backend services. There's the navigation, that was the menu that I quickly showed you. So all of this code is being generated by the view service, and it's really easy to set up and then start adding the interesting stuff. If I wanted to, just want to show you very quickly here, if I wanted to add authentication, for example, I would just click this button here, then I could decide should it be part of the navigation, and I don't want that. The data binding, yes, please use the TELERIK backend services that I specified, because here it can store the users. I can specify, should I have a register screen, should I have a remember me option, and should I have logout. And you know, I set up all these things. Also the redirect here on successful login. Should you go to the about page? Probably not. I think you should go to the list of anchor spots, and then I just hit apply. So now the app is being generated. All the files that I showed you before in Proton will be updated, and the new authentication view will be added. It's not visible here now because I haven't reloaded the project, but basically that's what is happening. Now let's take a look at how we add analytics to this project. Before I show how I did it in the Anchor panel, I want to start from a brand new NativeScript project, and I have this here. It's just to show you the initial steps you have to go through. So create a NativeScript app from within the TELERIK platform, go to the Analytics menu, then click Enable Analytics. And now the service is actually being prepared on our server side, and we have some initialization code that we need to add to the application. But before we do that, let's quickly jump to the code section, because we need to add the analytics plugin to the project. And you do this by right-clicking the right thing here, Manage Packages, go to the Plugins Marketplace, and here you can search for analytics. Here it is. I install it, and boom, that's it. The plugin is now added to the project, and here's the code that you actually want to add to your project to start using the module. So this was done in another test project. So let's jump to the real thing, and that's I'll do in Proton here again. So let's see what I did here. Close those and then go to the app.js file. This is where the interesting stuff is happening. I actually just copy-pasted the code that I showed you before and added it to the app.js file here. Basically, you want to get your hand on the analytics plugin, then you want to initialize it with the application ID that is unique for the Anchor app, and then you want to start the monitor. And once the application stops, you want to exit and stop the analytics. That's what I'm doing here. This code here, that's actually all you need to collect lots of data, totally automatically. You don't have to think about it, and we'll see a little later what kind of data that is. You can also add your own custom instrumentation. Let me just very quickly show you that. So in the About View, for example, which is generated by the view service, there's this section here which is custom code. So this code, the code you add between those comment lines here, will not be replaced by the view service when it regenerates the view. So here I've added this little element here to simply kick off once the page is loaded. So this part of the code will execute. And here I have the interesting line which is track event. That's one of the extra function calls you have on the analytics module, and that's a way to simply track specific things that you find interesting. So I just added, the ability to track how often are the different pages loaded. And if I go back to our dashboard here, this is the analytics view for the Anchor Pal. And what you can see here is right now that some data has been received in the live view. I haven't run this for quite some days now. And this data here is where you want to go. You know, when you first integrate analytics, you should go, and once you start running it, you should go to the live tab here and see that your session is appearing, and go into the details and see that everything is up and running correctly. And then later on, you can start seeing the data in the different reports. Here we have the GTUs. And here you can actually see the About view and my Anchor Spots view that has been loaded. And that was exactly the code that I showed you before, this specific custom code here that has generated that information. But let's now, as a last step, look at the real data from this app that I told you that had been running for a little bit more than a year. Here it is. All the information that I'm going to show you initially is all of the information you get by just adding the code without any custom instrumentation. So you have some overview data here, total sessions, users, etc., time of day, session length. You can decide if you want to see on a daily, weekly, or monthly granularity. You have the location. Quickly see the overview here. You can see Bulgaria is popular. Let's click on that. There was. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Go back again. Yes, here it is. And you can see the different cities, and Sofia, no surprise, is very popular for this app, because that's where it's being built, and it's one of the TELERIK employees that did it. So we have the cohort here, which is super interesting actually. Let's take a look on a weekly basis, maybe 12 weeks. What it shows is the activity for specific cohorts of users. So, you know, those that started in a specific week, how many of those users actually hang on to the application. Super important to understand how your app is being used, and if you make improvements, you should see the improvements here. Environment information, which operating systems are being used for this app, the languages, the manufacturer. Just need to refresh here. That was Samsung, Apple, etc. Screen resolution in a different view here, but you can see which that's something you can actually configure yourself. So it's not something specific for the screen resolution. It's just a specification that I had. Finally, I think I just managed to do that. Let's take a look at the exceptions. We collect exceptions from the application. I can dive into one. I can see the stack trace. I can see information about how many users are affected, how many versions were affected. I can ignore the exception. I can resolve it, etc., etc. And this information, all of this information that I showed you now, is something that comes from simply adding not the specific custom codes that I will show you here, but just these few lines of code of initialization. So, you know, add analytics to the project, add the plugin, and add those lines of information we have here, and then you have all of the information available that I showed you here. I don't have time now, but there's a lot more in analytics, filtering, detailed reports, dashboards, all of your custom measurements that can be added, you know, to monitor exactly those things that you find would be interesting for you. So my time is up now, and I want to thank you for seeing this. Reach out to me if you have any questions on anything related to the platform, and specifically analytics. That's where I would like to help you. So thanks for this.
Thanks so much, Rob, Jen, and Michael. That was fantastic. Now, we covered a lot of ground today, and I hope that every one of you found something that you want to dig into further. Whether it's new features in Screen Builder, or analytics, or NativeScript updates, UI for NativeScript, TypeScript, or one of the other new features that we discussed today. No matter what it is, there's never been a better time to build mobile apps with the TELERIK platform. So with that, there's really nothing left to do at this point except for you to take the TELERIK platform for a spin. If you've never tried the platform before, head on over to platform.telerik.com to create an account. And if it's been a while, we'd love for you to jump back in, see what's new, and let us know what you think. And remember, don't forget, if you create and run a new app in the next week, you'll be entered to win one of our great prizes. So with that, we're going to transition over to some live Q&A. We've been collecting your questions over the course of the last hour and have selected a handful to cover over the next few minutes. So we're going to switch over to live Q&A here in a moment, so please bear with us as we make the switch, and Rob and I will be right back with you shortly.
Well, once again, everybody, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for sticking with us to the webinar today. I'm joined here today by Rob Lauer. How are you doing, Rob? I'm doing really well, Brandon. How about you? I'm doing great. So we got a lot of great questions this morning during the webinar. Cherry-picked a couple that we thought would be broadly applicable, and so we'll bounce those back and forth to each other. Rob, I'll start with one for you. And we talked a lot about native today, specifically native in the platform NativeScript. Can you elaborate a little bit on the differences between hybrid development and native style development of NativeScript cross-platform native?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really fundamental to understanding the nature of the TELERIK platform, because we started a few years ago with the hybrid development model, and hybrid is really based on leveraging web technologies. And so you essentially write, you use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and you write a single-page application that runs in a web view on the device. Now, you usually use a JavaScript framework like TUI or Ionic to kind of take advantage of that web view. And it feels like a native mobile app. It looks like a native mobile app. And really, they're great for line-of-business apps, maybe those apps that don't have the, graphic, intense graphic needs of a game, for instance. So hybrid is really commonly used, but we are seeing people pushing more towards native. And that's why we created the NativeScript framework, which lets you still use technologies like HTML, like JavaScript and CSS, and the XML markup to actually create a truly native app using those technologies. Now, those really apply to any app scenario, especially for more intense apps that need to leverage more of the native device functionality. So that's kind of in a nutshell where those two break down. Now, for Brandon, for you, there's questions here. There's a lot of good ones. So when new releases of NativeScript come out, and the NativeScript team releases, every 4 to 6 weeks, probably, maybe even more often sometimes, what happens in the TELERIK platform when the new NativeScript version is released?
Oh, that's a great question. So as many of you may already be aware, we've had in our hybrid support in the past, we've had sometimes a bit of a lag when we had a new version of NDUI, which would ship 3 times a year, and getting that into the TELERIK platform. So there's a couple of ways that we dealt with this in the past. We're going to do the same thing with NativeScript. One is that as NativeScript marches closer and closer to its advanced releases 2.0 and beyond, we're getting to a point where our turn time for testing NativeScript in the platform is much shorter. We can actually get full-on support in the platform in a matter of days and not weeks. But we are also planning on making it even easier, similar to what you can do with NDUI, for you to pull in the latest bits of NativeScript into your own platform apps even before we sort of unveil official formal support in the product itself. And we'll be, stay tuned, you'll be hearing more about that in the course of the next couple of days and weeks. So, great question. So, Rob, I got one for you. This came up during one of your demos as you went through building and deploying an iOS app, and it was noted that you weren't using a Mac. So, I know this question comes up a lot. You want to talk a little bit about that as one of sort of the unique values of the TELERIK platform and building iOS apps, not having to have that Mac hanging out on your desk?
Sure, very astute observation. Indeed, I was fully on Windows for my demo and did not have a Mac. It's been one of the value props of the TELERIK platform since the beginning, the fact that you can develop iOS applications without having a Mac. You don't need a Mac on your desk. You don't need access to a Mac over the network, anything like that. Actually, all of our builds are run in the cloud, so you can develop on any number of our clients, like Visual Studio or our native desktop clients, and push those apps to the cloud, and we will build them for you and give you back an IPA file. So just like as if you were running Xcode locally, we handle all that for you. So, Brandon, here's a good question. So I'm this person that they're going to develop a healthcare app, which uses native device features like a gyroscope, accelerometer, and so on. Does the TELERIK platform support using these features on the device?
Well, that's a great question. And when you look at it, the answer really does depend on whether you're choosing to do hybrid with the TELERIK platform or you're doing a native app with NativeScript. In both cases, the answer fundamentally is yes. It's just a different approach in how you do it. So if you're building a hybrid app, we have standard Cordova core plugins that give you features like camera, accelerometer, and on. And we also have support for extended plugins at the TELERIK Plugins Marketplace at plugins.telerek.com. And you can get a lot of extended support for core APIs, for extended third-party APIs as well. I definitely check that out. In the case of NativeScript, the framework itself actually unlocks access to those native APIs. So there's no plugin model because NativeScript itself fundamentally gives you access to the actual underlying OS, whether it be iOS or Android. So for many of those core pieces of functionality, like the accelerometer, the gyroscope, you can do those in NativeScript today. But we do also have this concept of plugins in NativeScript as well, and you can also find many of those at the Plugins Marketplace. So while the approach is slightly different based on the framework, you can definitely rely on those native APIs regardless of the approach that you choose. Awesome. So, okay, Rob, so I've got another one for you. So, the question was, when you're working, this is a person who's working on their hybrid app, and you noticed at times they were getting slightly different UI in the simulator versus the physical device. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what the preferred workflow is to moving from the simulator to the physical device, and sort of what the TELERIK platform enables that lets you do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because a lot of times you will start your development experience working, you're writing code, and you want to quickly iterate some changes, you want to get a rough approximation of how that app is going to work on the device, which is why we created these integrated device simulators. Now, the keyword there is a simulator. It's not a perfect replication of a native device. And so, these are the recommended practices to, you write some code, and you want to see how that's going to act, an approximation of how that's going to act on the device, to use the simulator. But the next step is going to be to either use one of our emulators, which we, like I showed in my demo, you can actually use the Android or iOS emulators. And beyond that, you can actually deploy directly to a physical device you have on your desk. So you can plug in your iOS or Android or Windows Phone device, and you can quickly deploy the app to the device. You can use our companion apps. This is an easier way to get an app on the device just by scanning a QR code. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. But again, kind of starting with the simulator is that kind of basic experience, and then working your way up to iterating on native devices is really the best way to do it. So that was a really good question. Brandon, I have another one for you here. What's the story on Windows support for NativeScript? We actually got a lot of questions about when are we going to see Windows support for NativeScript?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know that this is a question on the top of a lot of folks' minds. And I'm happy to say that we were excited to see in the last couple of weeks that Microsoft is formalizing and really unveiling a lot of their strategy around the Universal Windows Platform, which is sort of their future of Windows on devices, both desktop and mobile. And so we're excited to see that because that was a big piece of the puzzle for us to really have what we need on the TELERIK side to fit around our Windows support in NativeScript. And many of you may know, if you're not already aware, that we did actually release an alpha sort of preview for what we think the Windows Universal or Universal Windows support will look like for NativeScript, and that's available at the NativeScript GitHub organization. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. That should give you an idea of what we're thinking about. And if you're someone who's working with Windows and want to work with NativeScript, again, that's open source. We would love to see you jump in and give us some your take advice or help us understand what you're trying to do with NativeScript on Windows. We'll continue to evaluate. It is on our roadmap to accelerate our Windows support, to look at offering that at some point, hopefully in 2016. We also need to continue to get feedback from you all, from customers, on how you're using Windows. Definitely check that out for preview, and keep an eye on the NativeScript blog and the NativeScript site for more information on that. So with that, Rob, I think that we're about out of time. So I appreciate everybody attending today and the hundreds of questions that we got. Again, we'll definitely have the recording for this posted up on YouTube, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the day today. And again, go check out the TELERIK Platform and let us know how it's working for you. Thanks, everybody.